Tonight, we just sent a Texas-sized message to Washington.
Ken Paxton wins the Republican primary runoff in a blowout.
Change was on the ballot, and change won.
After 24 years in the Senate, John Cornyn's political career will come to an end.
I trust the voters of Texas, and they've made their decision, and I must respect it.
Now, on to November. Paxton versus Talarico.
James Talarico is a threat to everything we hold dear in this state and in this country.
The most corrupt politician in America just became the Republican nominee for the United States Senate right here in Texas.
Game on. It sure is. Good morning, I'm Jack Fink, and welcome to Eye on Politics on this last day in May. And along with the weather, Texas politics is also heating up, and we're going to begin with the Texas Senate race and Attorney General Ken Paxton's blowout win in the Republican primary runoff against Senator John Cornyn. It came after a nearly 14-month-long fight between them and after an 11th hour endorsement for Paxton by President Trump. Paxton won by 28 percentage points, 64 to 36%. And that's despite the fact that Cornyn far outspent Paxton on TV ads in the primary and the runoff.
Tonight, we just sent a Texas-sized message to Washington. I said it in March, and I'll say it again now. Today, change was on the ballot, and change won. Let me be clear, this is not just my win, this is your win. We just proved that this Senate seat doesn't belong to Washington. It belongs to you, the hardworking men and women of this state.
After 4 terms and 24 years, the John Cornyn era in the Senate will come to an end when his term expires in December. It was a tough night for the senator, and in his concession speech, he didn't mention Paxton by name, but said he would back Republicans in November.
After a public service career lasting more than 4 decades and 18 consecutive campaign wins, tonight we've come up short, and I've always supported the Republican ticket, and I intend to do so again in this general election. I've said throughout this race that I trust the voters of Texas, and they've made their decision, and I must respect it.
In a post, President Trump said, quote, "Congratulations to Ken Paxton on such a tremendous win." He went on to say, quote, "I will do some nice, big, beautiful rallies for Ken. Texas, this will be fun." Paxton now faces Democratic State Representative James Talarico in what is already a bruising battle for the Texas Senate seat. Both campaigns unleashed their attacks on Tuesday night, with Talarico calling Paxton corrupt because of his record and Paxton calling Talarico radical because of his past statements. I spoke with Talarico and I asked him about that. Both campaigns also released new ads targeting each other.
My opponent is the most extreme radical the Democrats have ever nominated.
Attorney General Ken Paxton didn't waste any time criticizing his Democratic rival for the U.S. Senate seat, James Talarico. And in an interview with me, Talarico fired back at Paxton.
The most corrupt politician in America just became the Republican nominee for the United States Senate right here in Texas.
Both campaigns also released new digital ads with Talarico using news clips recalling Paxton's impeachment by the Republican majority in the Texas House 3 years ago.
A majority of Texas House Republicans voted to impeach one of their own.
Paxton is a repugnant character.
He was acquitted of all impeachment articles in his trial. Paxton's ad featured some clips of Talarico's past statements that have sparked controversy.
There are many more than 2 biological sexes. In fact, there are 6. It is now existential that we try to reduce our meat consumption. I am proud to say that our campaign has officially become a non-meat campaign.
Some people know him as Tofu Talarico. Some people call him Six-Gender Jimmy. I've even heard some people call him James Talarico. And others refer to him simply as Low T Talarico. But no matter what you call him, let me tell you this. James Talarico is a threat to everything we hold dear in this state and in this country.
Well, you know, I'll be the first to admit that I missed the mark on some of those old statements. But what Ken Paxton is doing is clipping my old cringy comments to distract from his career of corruption.
Follow up on what you said before. You described them as cringy comments. Are you disavowing those?
We all can look back and be embarrassed by how we said things in the past, and I'm certainly not exempt from that. But what I'm trying to point out is that this is the playbook of puppet politicians. He uses his public office to enrich himself and his donors at our expense. And so the only way that he's able to hold on is by dividing us.
During my interview, I asked Talarico more about his statements and how they relate to his policies. What do you say to the beef and cattle industry, certainly very big industries here in Texas, lots of employees, that if you're elected to the Senate, how can you convince them that you would fight to protect those industries?
Yeah, I've met with our Texas cattle ranchers, and I'm absolutely committed to protecting the industry here in Texas. And I've heard from a lot of these ranchers that the current administration has sold them out with bailouts for Argentina that undercut the Texas beef industry. And so I am committed to fighting for Texas businesses and Texas workers in the U.S. Senate, just like I did for my local businesses in the Texas House of Representatives. If all that Ken Paxton has is lying about me being a vegan, I feel pretty good about our chances in November. I'm an 8th generation Texan. I've been eating barbecue since before Ken Paxton's first indictment. And I look forward to this contest in the weeks and months ahead.
You also said, quote, "You can't call yourself a Christian and destroy God's creation with greenhouse gases." How does your thought influence your policy to the oil and gas industry? And if you are elected, will you move your energy policy and hope to move the U.S. energy policy away from President Trump's drill, baby, drill?
I'm for an all-of-the-above energy strategy. I want to protect good-paying oil and gas jobs here in Texas and invest in good-paying jobs in renewables, in wind and solar and batteries and geothermal. It's going to take an all-of-the-above strategy to be able to keep Texas #1 in energy and combat climate change. We can do both of those things at the same time. You know, I had family members who worked in the Texas oil and gas industry. I went to public schools funded by the Texas oil and gas industry. So my commitment to good-paying oil and gas jobs is absolute. And as a U.S. Senator, I will fight for all Texas industries.
And you spoke before about lowering costs and raising incomes. So if you get to the U.S. Senate, do you have specific plans to make that happen?
I think we can immediately reduce the price of groceries by repealing these crazy tariffs that are driving up costs all over Texas, all over America. I think when it comes to gas prices, we can immediately drop the price of gas by suspending the federal gas tax. That would drop the price of gas by 18 cents a gallon immediately. And then I've proposed suspending the federal diesel tax. Because of this new war in Iran, you've seen the price of diesel spike, and that increases the price of everything because every good that you buy was shipped by diesel. So by suspending both of those federal taxes, we can provide some immediate relief and start to lower costs. The last one I'll mention, I have a long list, but the last one I'll mention is the price of prescription drugs. You know that I'm a type 1 diabetic. When I was first diagnosed, when I was 29, I paid $684 for my first 30-day supply of insulin. And when I got elected to the state house, I brought Democrats and Republicans together to beat Big Pharma and cap insulin at $25 per prescription. We could do that at the federal level with many more life-saving drugs, EpiPens, cancer drugs. This is the kind of progress that we need to make on healthcare.
I spoke with both Texas GOP Chairman Abraham George and Texas Democratic Party Chairman Kendall Scudder about the Senate race. We'll start with George, and I asked him about Paxton's attacks against Talarico and how much the president's endorsement played into Paxton's Texas-sized victory over Cornyn.
Obviously, president's endorsement in Texas is a major deal. People love president up here in Texas, and he won by 14 points last time. One of the other things is the grassroots showed up. They did not stay home. This was a major issue for them. John Cornyn is a nice guy, like President said, but people are looking for fighters.
Do you think that Republicans are going to come together? Cornyn supporters are going to come together and rally around Paxton?
Oh, 100%. We always have pretty brutal primaries in Texas. I mean, because we're the leading party, everyone wants to run as a Republican, and we go through this almost every cycle. But by the time we get to November, we are united. We're already sending out, messages, text messages, emails to bring everyone together.
We've seen the Democratic nominee, James Talarico, has already come out on offense. He's called Paxton, quote, the most corrupt politician in the United States. And his campaign is now, their theme is, quote, the people versus Ken Paxton. How will Republicans here in Texas and nationally help defend this seat?
It is people versus somebody, and that ain't Ken Paxton. It is people versus Talarico. You ask him, what do you love the most other than your family? And his first thing that comes out of this guy's mind is trans children. A grown man thinking about that, it's just weird. And then that's not Texas values. He is trying to push transgender ideology on our children. He wants open borders.
Now the Democrats, Kendall Scudder, and I asked him about Talarico going on offense against Paxton.
Well, of course they called him the most corrupt politician in America. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And I'm glad that the Talarico campaign is calling it what it is. Ken Paxton has spent the entire time as Attorney General just completely covered in controversy, whether it's indictments or fraud allegations. It's just disgusting what he's put the state of Texas through. And Texans deserve better. They deserve elected leaders that are going to focus on solutions. And that's exactly what James Talarico is doing.
Texas is still a Republican state, and I was talking with a Democratic activist recently who said this is still a knife fight every day for Texas Democrats to win statewide. They haven't done it since 1994. And so I'm wondering what has to happen for either James Talarico or another statewide Democratic candidate to do that.
I mean, it's certainly a lot about turnout in major metros throughout Texas. I think we also have to make sure we're organizing in the 40 mid-sized cities with over 100,000 people in it that Democrats just frankly have not been doing the organizing work that they needed to. We've been building on that since I've become chairman a year ago, and I intend to continue doing that. But then also small town Texas that the Democrats haven't always shown up in. We haven't had the resources to do it. Every corner of Texas, 254 counties, leaving no one behind. That's how you make sure not only you win elections, but that you actually represent the public once you do win those elections.
After it became clear that Paxton would face Talarico in November, two organizations that rate the races, the Cook Political Report and Larry Sabato's Crystal Ball, shifted the Texas Senate race from likely R to leans R. Coming up next, another statewide race is settled. We'll hear from Republican Mays Middleton and Democrat Nathan Johnson, who will fight for the open Texas Attorney General seat. Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. The race for Texas Attorney General is now set for November. In the Republican runoff, State Senator Mays Middleton of Galveston, who campaigned as MAGA Mays Middleton, easily defeated Central Texas Congressman Chip Roy. In the Democratic runoff for Attorney General, State Senator Nathan Johnson of Dallas beat former Galveston Mayor Joe Jaworski. Now Johnson will face Middleton in the fall. I went one-on-one with Middleton, and I asked him if his top priority remains defeating the left.
Well, Jack, look, we're in a spiritual battle for the future of our state. They're trying to destroy Texas, and I mean the left. And that is why this fight is so important. They want to drag us down, like they've done New York, California, all the others. Look at James Talarico running for office. You literally have Democrats running now for statewide on the campaign promise of not following the law, right? He said that God was non-binary transgender, that there was a biblical argument for abortion, and that the Ten Commandments was unchristian and un-American. And the Democrat in my race for Attorney General, Nathan Johnson, he actually had a debate in his primary. And he said the number one law he would not enforce and not follow is one I authored and passed, the women's privacy law, which kicks men out of women's restrooms and locker rooms. Right? This is common sense right here. And we've got to make sure, and I will make sure, that those Texas values are protected and defended, and I will aggressively enforce our laws to do so.
As you mentioned, you're going to be facing Democratic State Senator Nathan Johnson in November. I spoke with him, and he said that he wants to make the office less partisan, more independent, and I'm wondering, what do you think of that?
I'm the law and order, tough on crime candidate here. I want to make sure that Texas is the safest state in America to live and raise a family. That's how we keep our family safe. That's how we secure those God-granted freedoms of life and liberty and property.
When I was talking with Senator Johnson, he said that if he is elected, that people should expect that he is going to file suit against the Trump administration. If you are elected and then a Democrat is elected president in 2028, you could see yourself filing lawsuits against that administration. So talk to me a little bit about that.
We had 4 years of lawlessness. We had 4 years of a federal administration that was attacking Texas. Joe Biden was trying to force boys into girls' sports. He was trying to force men into women's restrooms and locker rooms. And that was something they used to say, oh, that's never going to happen. That's a solution in search for a problem. Well, you know what? It did happen.
I also spoke with the Democratic nominee, Nathan Johnson, one-on-one about his priorities, which he says are less partisan.
The Attorney General's office is intended to be one of the most powerful, benevolent agencies that the framers ever created. It has, to our great disadvantage over the past 10 years, and it to shamefully been transformed into little more than a partisan hack tool, a propaganda machine for a faction of a party that is not only doing great damage, it's leaving undone the good work that the office is supposed to do. I think we're going to win by a healthy margin because we're going to see independent voters, undecided voters who want to see an attorney general's office that works for them, that is there to enforce market rules of competition so prices come down, don't go up, that's there to work with, not against district attorneys so our streets are safer, that investigates and prosecutes corruption rather than participating in it. You will see Republican crossover from a disaffected Republican swath of the population, a huge swath that is absolutely dismayed.
If you win, President Trump will still be in office for a couple of years. Might we see the state of Texas, you and your office, filing suit against the Trump administration?
Extremely likely that you would see me in my office suing the Trump administration. It is not a goal of mine. I have more productive things to do than to sue the federal government for breaking the law. But Trump seems to have made it policy to ignore the law, to trample on rights, to actually trample on states' rights. I can't imagine that he's going to have an epiphany in November and decide to start complying with the Administrative Procedures Act and respecting the Constitution and the separation of powers and principles of federalism. I just don't see it happening, and that's going to call upon me to act in some degree in coordination with many good attorneys general across the country, most of them Democrats, but also Republican attorneys general who have sued the Trump administration when they illegally impound money that have been appropriated to the state, when they wipe out whole agencies and programs and they violate contracts. I think I'll have to spend a lot of time suing the Trump administration. My big hope is that if we're faced with a divided government as a result of these November elections, is that I can spend less of my time suing the federal government, less of my time trying to keep Republicans in check, and more of my time trying to do something that you do have to do and you learn to do as an effective legislator, and that is forging coalitions to get serious work done. I'm not running for this office just so I can be fighting all the time. I'm going to have to fight a lot. But there is a productive element to government that I think we owe it to the public, whatever office you're in.
In another major race, former Congressman Colin Allred will likely be returning to Capitol Hill in January. He defeated the woman who succeeded him, Congresswoman Julie Johnson, in the Democratic runoff for the newly drawn 33rd Congressional District in Dallas County.
When we beat them in November and we take back the Congress, we're going to hold them accountable. I want to see butts in seats. I want to see hearings. I want to see investigations.
Patrick Gillespie beat John Sims in the Republican runoff for the 33rd Congressional District and will face Allred in November. This is a Democratic majority district, so Allred is all but certain to win. We'll be right back. Other key statewide matchups for November are now set. Sarah Jenkins has the brief.
In the Democratic runoff for Lieutenant Governor, State Representative Vicki Goodwin defeated Union leader Marcos Velas. She now will run against Republican incumbent Dan Patrick in November. In the Republican runoff for Railroad Commissioner, former Tarrant County GOP Chairman Beau French edged out incumbent Jim Wright. French will face Democratic State Representative John Rosenthal. Two other high-profile statewide races had already been set. Democratic State Representative Gina Hinojosa is challenging Republican Governor Greg Abbott, and former Representative State Senator Don Huffines faces Democratic State Senator Sarah Eckhart for Texas Comptroller. For The Brief, I'm Sarah Jenkins.
All right, thank you, Sarah. You can watch all our full interviews from today's show on our CBS Texas YouTube page. And while you're there, look for the Eye on Politics playlist and press the subscribe button. And that's all for our busy Eye on Politics today. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening to you at CBS News Texas. Thanks so much for watching, and from all of us here, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'll see you again next week.